What if everything you've ever dreamed of, every goal, every desire, every version of your ideal life is actually within reach, but hidden behind a simple truth you haven't yet fully embraced? Most people go through life with energy, ambition, and even talent, but still feel stuck. They work hard, keep busy, and fill their days with activity, yet feel like they're spinning their wheels. The problem isn't a lack of effort. It's the absence of clarity. You can't hit a target you can't see. Imagine standing at the edge of a forest with a bow and arrow. You have the strength to draw the bow, the determination to hit something, and the willingness to practice. But there's one problem. You have no idea what you're aiming at. You release arrow after arrow, and not one of them lands where it needs to. That's how many of us live our lives. We're aiming in the dark, hoping that something eventually works out. The truth is, setting a clear, compelling goal isn't just helpful, it's necessary. It gives direction to your days, purpose to your struggles, and energy to your efforts. Without it, even your best intentions dissolve into frustration and fatigue. But when your goals are specific, emotionally charged, and aligned with your core values, life changes. You wake up with purpose, you work with passion, and most importantly, you begin to see results. This isn't about making to-do lists or writing down random wishes. It's about unlocking a system that takes your dreams seriously, because your life is too important to live it on accident. If you've ever felt like more is possible but just out of reach, you're not wrong. The key isn't out there somewhere. It starts by getting radically clear on what you want and deciding that you're no longer willing to live without it. Most people don't lack dreams, they lack direction. Deep down, almost everyone wants more out of life, more freedom, more purpose, more peace, more joy. The desire for growth is natural, it's part of what makes us human. But wanting more is not enough. That longing needs a path, a vision, a decision. Because without a clear destination, even the most determined person can find themselves wandering in circles, chasing temporary satisfaction instead of lasting progress. Goals are the blueprint of your future. They are not simply wishes or vague hopes for a better tomorrow. Real goals have structure, weight, and momentum. They bring order to your chaos, clarity to your confusion, and focus to your fire. Without them, life becomes reactive. You end up responding to circumstances instead of creating them. You drift instead of drive. You settle instead of soar. Think about the last time you felt deeply satisfied with your progress in life. Chances are it wasn't random. It was a result of focus, intentional effort, and knowing exactly what you were working toward. That feeling of fulfillment doesn't come from just being busy. It comes from being aligned. And alignment starts with goal setting. When your goals reflect who you are, what you value, and what you were created to do, your life begins to move forward with power and purpose. Some people avoid setting goals because they fear failure. Others think goals are too rigid or that life is too unpredictable to plan. But in truth, not setting goals is the greater risk. Without vision, you leave your future in the hands of chance, distractions, or other people's agendas. You give away your authority over your own life. But with vision and intention, you reclaim that authority. You become a creator, not a reactor. There's a reason Scripture says where there is no vision, the people perish, Proverbs 29:18. Vision gives life its shape. It doesn't mean every detail will go as planned, but it ensures your direction remains steady. A life built on goals rooted in vision is a life built on purpose, not performance, not pressure, but purpose. You begin to see setbacks as part of the process, not as dead ends. You develop resilience because your why is strong enough to outlast the discomfort of growth. This guide is designed to help you get clear, get focused, and get moving, not toward someone else's version of success, but toward the life you were always meant to live. In today's fast-paced world, it's easy to feel like you're always busy but never really getting anywhere. You check off task after task, jump from one responsibility to the next, and yet at the end of the week, or even the year, you wonder what it all added up to. So many people feel overwhelmed, burned out, or stuck, not because they're lazy or lacking ability, but because they don't have a clear direction. They're active but not aligned, productive but not purposeful, and that disconnection creates frustration, fatigue, and ultimately resignation. One of the biggest challenges people face is not knowing exactly what they want. They might have a general idea. I want to be successful. I want to be happy. I want financial freedom. But those desires are too vague to create any real traction. Without clarity, energy is scattered. Time is spent reacting to what's urgent instead of focusing on what's truly important. You might find yourself caught in a cycle of setting resolutions or writing goals at the beginning of the year, only to abandon them weeks later because they didn't have the depth or structure to survive the demands of real life. Another challenge is the fear of failure. Many people avoid setting meaningful goals because they worry they won't achieve them, or because they've tried before and fallen short. That past disappointment becomes a silent voice in their head whispering, don't bother trying again. So instead of aiming high, they shrink their expectations. They settle for what feels safe or manageable, even if it leaves them unfulfilled. There's also the challenge of distraction. We live in a world filled with noise, social media, notifications, news, endless entertainment. These things pull your attention in dozens of directions every day, making it nearly impossible to hear your inner voice. When your mind is cluttered, it's hard to focus and even harder to plan. Without intentional space to think deeply and set meaningful goals, it's no wonder people feel lost or off course. Worst of all, some people stop dreaming altogether. They've convinced themselves that real change isn't possible, that this is just the way life is. That mindset is the greatest barrier of all because it locks the door from the inside. But here's the truth. Your life doesn't have to be a reaction to the world around you. With vision and strategy, you can reclaim control and begin to move forward with confidence. The challenge is real, but so is the solution. The path to meaningful goals begins with clarity. Before you can take action, you need to define exactly what you want. Not just in vague terms, but with precision. What does your ideal life look like in your relationships, your health, your finances, your spiritual walk? Too often, people skip this step and jump straight into doing. But clarity is what gives your actions power. It turns activity into progress. When you know where you're going, you can begin to make intentional, focused decisions that align with your vision. Start by asking yourself questions that go deeper than surface level desires. What matters most to you? What would you pursue even if no one else was watching? What legacy do you want to leave? These questions guide you beyond temporary goals and into a deeper sense of purpose. The more honest and detailed you are in your answers, the more effective your goal-setting process will become. Once you have clarity, the next step is breaking down your goals into actionable steps. Big dreams can feel overwhelming when they're only seen from a distance, but when you divide them into smaller milestones, they become manageable. For example, if your goal is to become debt-free, your first step might be creating a budget. If you want to write a book, your first milestone might be drafting an outline. Each step builds confidence and momentum. It's also essential to connect your goals to strong emotional reasons, your why. Logic may start the process, but emotion sustains it. When challenges arise, and they will, your emotional connection to your goals is what keeps you going. That deeper motivation transforms your goal from a task into a mission. Time and energy must also be protected. Distractions are the enemies of progress. Set boundaries around your time. Schedule your priorities instead of prioritizing your schedule. Make space to review your goals weekly. Celebrate small wins and adjust your approach when needed. Progress is rarely a straight line, but regular reflection keeps you on course. Most importantly, align your goals with your faith. Surrender your plans to God and ask Him for wisdom and discernment. Proverbs 3:6 says, "In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths." When your goals reflect your values and your faith, they become more than just personal achievements. They become part of your calling. That alignment creates the deepest form of success, peace, purpose, and impact. There comes a moment when everything shifts. It may not be loud or dramatic, but it is powerful. It's the point when you realize that your life doesn't have to continue on autopilot. The dreams you've held in your heart aren't foolish or impossible. They're waiting for you to believe they're worth pursuing. This is the turning point where your mindset moves from someday to now, from maybe to yes. It's the quiet but strong decision that you're no longer willing to live by chance or settle for less than what you were created for. This is where the power of vision becomes real. You begin to see how every goal you set can become a seed for something greater. No more vague intentions, no more scattered energy. You see the value of structure, purpose, and discipline, not as limitations, but as the tools that unlock freedom. That moment of realization brings both relief and excitement. Relief that you don't have to stay stuck, and excitement that a new path is possible. You may feel fear too. That's normal. Change always comes with uncertainty, but in this moment, courage is born. Not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward anyway. Your goals begin to take on new meaning. They are no longer just things to achieve, but expressions of who you are becoming. You understand now that growth isn't about perfection, it's about direction. And with each small step, you're building a future you can be proud of. Spiritually, this moment can also be one of surrender. It's when you say, God, I trust you with my plans. I invite you into my vision. I want to walk in purpose, not just chase accomplishments. That alignment creates peace that surpasses understanding, even in the face of obstacles. Suddenly, the journey itself becomes sacred, not just the destination. The momentum that follows is unmistakable. You wake up with intention. You carry yourself with confidence. You make decisions with clarity. And though life may still throw challenges your way, they no longer derail you. Why? Because you're anchored in vision, and vision backed by faith is unstoppable. This key moment when you decide to live on purpose is the beginning of everything. It's the bridge between who you are and who you're becoming. It's where real transformation begins. And it starts with one clear choice: to live with vision, commitment, and courage. When we look at the lives we desire, lives filled with purpose, direction, and fulfillment, it becomes clear that none of it happens by accident. Growth, progress, and transformation require intentionality. They require us to slow down, reflect deeply, and decide where we're going and why it matters. Without a clear vision, it's too easy to fall into routines that keep us busy but unfulfilled. The days pass, the months blur, and the years slip by without meaningful change. But when you choose to live with purpose, everything shifts. Setting goals isn't just about writing a list of achievements. It's about designing a life that reflects who you are, what you believe, and where you're called to go. It's about waking up each day with a sense of mission instead of confusion. It's about living by design, not default. You stop drifting, you stop waiting for the right time, and you start moving with clarity, even if your steps are small. It's important to remember that goals root in your values, your passion, and your faith are the most powerful of all. They endure the setbacks, they outlast the distractions, they remain firm when motivation fades, and the process of working toward those goals shapes you into someone stronger, wiser, and more aligned with your purpose. Scripture reminds us that the plans of the diligent lead to profit, Proverbs 21:5, showing that thoughtful, steady planning is not just practical, it's wise. When your vision is anchored in truth and your actions are aligned with that vision, you begin to live with integrity and intention. The outside world may not immediately reflect your efforts, but inwardly, something profound is happening. You're becoming the person your future requires you to be. This journey of goal setting is not a one-time exercise. It's a lifestyle, a way of approaching each season with fresh eyes, renewed commitment, and faithful courage. You won't always get it right, but you will always grow if you stay engaged, reflective, and open to God's guidance. Let this be the moment you draw a line in the sand and say, I will no longer live without direction. Not because life is perfect, but because purpose is powerful. The future is not something you wait for, it's something you build. And that building begins with a clear goal, a willing heart, and the faith to move forward one step at a time. Now is the time to take what you've read and put it into motion. The difference between wishing for change and experiencing change is action. Not next week, not when life slows down, not when everything feels perfect, because it never will. The time to begin is now, right where you are with what you have. Don't underestimate the power of a single focused decision. Your future is shaped one step at a time, and that first step matters more than you think. Start by setting aside quiet time for reflection. Find a place free from distractions and ask yourself the real questions. What do I truly want in this season of life? What areas of my life feel out of alignment? What have I been avoiding out of fear or uncertainty? Be honest, be specific, write your answers down. Putting pen to paper brings clarity, and clarity is the beginning of transformation. Once you've reflected, begin defining your top 3 goals. Not vague ideas, but specific, measurable, meaningful goals that light a fire in your heart. Break each one down into small, doable steps. Create a simple timeline and commit to taking at least one small action this week, no matter how minor it seems. Momentum is built through consistent movement, not big leaps. If you're a person of faith, pray over your goals. Invite God into your plans. Ask for wisdom, strength, and discernment. Trust that He will guide your steps even when the path is uncertain. Surrender the outcomes, but stay faithful to the process. Lastly, consider sharing your goals with someone you trust. Accountability brings encouragement and keeps your vision alive, especially during difficult moments. Celebrate your wins, big and small, and don't be discouraged by setbacks. Every step forward is progress. You don't need to have all the answers today, but you do need to begin. Your life is too valuable to be lived by default. Make the decision to live on purpose. Create your vision, commit to your goals, honor the process, and remember, the journey you begin today has the power to change everything. So take that first step. Your future is waiting, and it starts with you.